Doug, thanks for joining us, my friend. How are you?
Hey, what's up,
guys?
Doug?
Always good to be with you.
That's right. Always good to have you on, Doug. All right, so let's get right into this. Let's dig deep right into it, man. So as you know, Donald Trump has a big rally planned for tomorrow in Tulsa. 20,000 people expected, maybe more. The president has and his administration have put out these waivers so that if you get sick, they sign it, they can't sue the president. Kayleigh was asked in a press conference, will you take responsibility for it if somebody gets sick at the rally? She dodged the question. So, Doug, I want to ask you this. With all the upticks throughout the country with the coronavirus, what do you make of the president holding this rally in Tulsa?
I think it is reckless. I think it is dangerous. I think it is homicidally negligent. And the fact is, he knows what he's doing is wrong and dangerous. Otherwise, he wouldn't have people sign the waiver saying they couldn't sue him if they get sick. What amazes me is that his base and his rally attendees don't see the message he's sending them. He's letting them know, I need you there to placate my ego. It's been shelved for 3 months. I can't take it anymore. I need your adoration. I don't care if you get sick, and to prove it, I'm going to make you sign a waiver absolving me of all responsibility. I mean, it couldn't be any clearer what he is telling his base, and they don't care. That's what cult members do.
JD, your response to that?
You know, I think that it should be outside. I don't like the idea, considering what's going on with these upticks. Whether they're we don't know exactly. It sounds like the virus is getting a lot less deadly than it was, but it's obviously very contagious and it's popping up all over the country. But this should not be done inside. It should be.
Well,
hold on,
JD. Where are you getting the information that it sounds like the virus is trailing off, or whatever expression you used? 21 states have seen an uptick. Several of them have seen their record one-day high for new cases.
I'm not talking about new cases. Again, Doug, it doesn't make a difference if you have the virus if you're not symptomatic. I'm talking about deaths. I'm talking about hospitalizations. New cases. That's what I'm saying. It's obviously maintained its level of contagiousness, but it does seem to be not as deadly as originally thought, or it seems that the virus seems to be getting less deadly because the deaths are falling off as the cases are rising. That's what I'm saying.
Well, again, I've seen no evidence that the virus is less deadly. It's as deadly as it was on day one. The main reason it has looked like it's been somewhat contained is because what we, the people, have done. We've sheltered ourselves inside for 3 months, and now that we're reopening, cases are on the rise again. Deaths are on the rise again. Tulsa, where he's going tomorrow, just had the record one-day high. I mean, it's insane.
Again,
and
I think it should be done
outdoors, but I don't think it should be at all, because the only reason it's being held in the first place, it's not for Trump's base, it's for Trump's ego.
I think it's for his base. I also think I would not be surprised if he declared Juneteenth a federal holiday tomorrow at this particular rally, considering the fact that it is taking place in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yeah, let's talk about that.
With what happened there 100 years ago. I would not be shocked at all if he did do something like that, because he made a tweet about it, I believe, last week, and he said, we had this on the 19th, which is obviously today, and we moved it after I had a conversation with my African-American friends and advisors because I wanted to show respect to this federal holiday. He actually called it a federal holiday. So I would not be surprised if he did the exact same thing tomorrow, which would be, in my opinion, a very, very intelligent move, because Obama didn't even recognize it as such and never mentioned once in 8 years of his presidency.
Well, that's fine, and I wouldn't be surprised if he made an announcement like that tomorrow either. The question is, who's really going to believe it's sincere and not just pandering?
Can I add something to that? Let me just add something. If you want to talk about Donald Trump's tweets, JD, the other day Donald Trump said he has made Juneteenth famous. Doug, what is your response to that when the President of the United States says that he made Juneteenth famous?
I love it when he says, nobody's ever heard of it before, which is Trump speak for, I never heard of it before.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
I could say I had not heard of it before. A lot of people that I've had conversations with have not heard. I'm talking to people that are very, very conservative. I mean, borderline alt-right are saying that Juneteenth should be a federal holiday, considering the fact that July 4th is a federal holiday, and it basically signifies the exact same thing. All right, just on a race-specific type of situation.
But let's go with that.
But no, as far as that tweet goes, Brian, he obviously what he was trying to say is people. I gave Juneteenth a lot of national attention, which he did do, but saying that he made it famous, it made it sound insensitive.
All right, so
I understand where you're coming from in that regard.
Let me respond to that. I hear that all the time, This is what I think he meant to say. That's number one. Number two, the same people, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to hold criticism.
I'm giving my interpretation of what he said.
Let me just give my criticism where I think criticism is fair, and then, Doug, I want to get your response to this. The same people who say, let's not erase history, let's keep all these statues up, are the same people who have never heard of June 19th before. Doug, what is your response to that? That don't erase history, let's keep all these statues up, but I've never heard of Juneteenth before. What would you say to that, Doug?
Well, my whole take on the erasing history is, it's just silly. I mean, that's why we have museums, that's why we have libraries, that's why we have history books, that's why we have schools, to make the argument that taking down a statue erases our history is almost the same thing as saying, well, if that's the case, maybe we should erect statues of the 9/11 hijackers in New York so we don't forget that history.
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
a reason there's no statues of Hitler and Goebbels in Germany. They haven't forgotten their history.
Very true, and that is my argument. We don't see Adolf Hitler statues anywhere. But going back to this Trump rally, in closing, we know this for sure. This is a fact. People are going to get sick. People are going to contract the virus. And for all you dummies out there that are doing that, and I hate the argument, this is what you hear from the right. I don't hear anybody complaining or talking about these BLM protests. First of all, I said that time and time again. I was criticizing these protesters for not practicing social distancing.
And that's a very valid point, and that's one of the reasons why there's upticks all over the country, Brian. Because people were chest to chest.
Okay. Why can't we criticize
20, 30,000 people for hours and hours on end.
Okay,
in some cases, destroying property.
Okay, but I don't want to go to the destroying property part because that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about coronavirus.
But
why can't you criticize
it's all intertwined. You can't criticize
Okay,
both.
but that's what I'm doing.
And you probably should.
But many people on the right are not doing that.
But a lot of mainstream media is not criticizing Black Lives Matter protests. In fact, I saw a doctor who was very, very aggressive about coronavirus, who called the national problem with racism significantly worse long term than the coronavirus.
Let's talk about
considering the fact that we've seen, I think, between Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, Ahmaud Arbery.
I want to go to Doug on this.
Probably 8 or 9 situations, but coronavirus has killed 120,000 people.
I want to go to.
How do you possibly make that statement and maintain any modicum of credibility?
I want to go to Doug on this, but here's the point I will make, and I think we agree on this. You should be able to criticize both sides. You should be able to criticize what the president is doing and what the BLM protesters are doing because they're not all practicing social distancing. But here's the difference. While I don't agree with what these protesters are doing because I think they're putting us all in harm's way, I will say this. He is the president of the United States. He is supposed to show leadership. This is not just some citizen who wants to protest. It's the president who is setting the precedents for this country. Doug, would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. And I would just add that the uptick in cases that we're seeing now is from the Memorial Day reopening. This virus has a 2 to 3 week incubation period. We have yet to see the results from the protests, which there will be some. There's no question. But at least those were held outdoors, which is less conducive to spread than indoors, and a lot of them were wearing masks. Plus the fact nobody was selling tickets for them and saying, you can't sue me if you go outside and protest. These protests were born of a moment. It became a movement. These people were willing to risk their lives, and others all agree, for a cause, for a noble cause. Attending a Donald Trump, there's nothing associated with Donald Trump is noble.
But I disagree with that. That's fine. But they weren't just risking their lives. They were also destroying property. They were burning down buildings. They were getting involved in altercations with the police. I mean, a lot of things were taking place.
Doug said a few.
That were overlapping with the Black Lives Matter protests. All this destruction that took place was basically directly after these protests or during it in some cases.
But again, important to note that when you say they, it wasn't a majority of those BLM protesters.
I'm not suggesting that every single Black Lives Matter protester was doing that.
Well, it wasn't the majority.
Because there is a difference between protesting and looting and rioting.
Well, it's important to note
and there's a difference between peaceful protesting and looting and rioting.
The majority of those throughout the country have been peaceful.
And I would agree with that.
Not to mention the fact we were talking about the relationship between the protest and the virus. Bringing the looting is a distraction from what we were discussing.
I tend to agree with that. I think most logical human beings would agree that what the president is doing and getting 20,000 people together is absurd and a disgrace. Speaking of a disgrace, there are a lot of Republicans out there for decades have said nothing but nice things about John Bolton, okay? Nothing but nice things. He appeared on the Laura Ingraham show on a weekly basis. He was a Fox News contributor. Sean Hannity had him on. And the second that John Bolton says some things about Donald Trump that I believe are true, everybody is against him. Listen, I've never been a John Bolton fan, and I think it's a disgrace that he did this for money, and he didn't do it for what was the good of the country, and now he wants to, attack Democrats for not going further with the impeachment process. Listen, John Bolton is a scumbag. But with that being said, again, zero credibility to the Sean Hannitys and the Laura Ingrahams of the world that had him on a weekly basis, and they bowed down to him, and now all of a sudden he speaks a little bit of truth about the Donald Trump, and they're all against him. Isn't that hypocrisy at its finest, Doug?
Oh, no kidding. I mean, the right has loved John Bolton. I would probably say that I've hated Bolton longer than most people have loved him, but it was because I disagreed with his policies. John Bolton never hid what he was. He was a neocon war hawk, and he was proud of it. He never lied about it. I mean, I hated him for his policies. I didn't have a problem with his honesty. And that's the thing. Neither did the right. And all of a sudden now, the Bolton book, we're getting snippets of it. Bolton's a liar. And this is what Trump and his media do all the time. Whenever something like this happens, they zero in on Bolton and make it look like he's the only one that said this. It was only a week ago that we had 4-star generals and admirals and former defense secretaries, former secretaries of state, presidential historians, all saying that Donald Trump is a threat to our democratic Republican Constitution. They were bashing the generals a week ago. Now their focus is all on John Bolton. It's like, well, wait a minute. Are all the generals and admirals liars too? All the people that came before them? It's amazing this tunnel vision that they developed to defend the indefensible Donald Trump.
Let me take it a step further.
Bolton said about him, essentially, that we didn't know. We didn't really know for sure that he had asked China to help him win the election, even though he said right in the White House driveway,
I thought it was Russia.
I think China should open an investigation into the Bidens. I mean, there's nothing that Bolton has said in his book that should be hard for any real-world dweller to acknowledge is true.
I want to add one more. I want to add one more thing, Jade, and then I want JD and Doug to discuss this because I think this is an important topic here. When Donald Trump has been talking about Bolton over the course of the last week or so, he's called him a lot of names. He's called him a psycho. He's called him a lot of different names, right? If you recall, Donald Trump has said over and over again, I only hire the best people. So the question I would ask Donald Trump is, if you only hire the best people, then why do you hire psychos? I mean, Doug, what would you say to that? And I'll let you guys discuss.
Well, just yesterday, after he had his meeting with the business owners, during which I might add, they were pouring out their hearts about the shutdown stories and how difficult it's been and how difficult the reopening is. And what was Trump doing? He was on his phone tweeting. He wasn't listening to what they said because he didn't care what they said. That aside, after the meeting, Paula Reed, the one who held his feet to the fire a couple months ago and tried to get him to explain what he did after his ban on January 30th, between then and March 16th, to which Trump had no answer and just kept repeating, I did a ban. She asked him yesterday at the end of the meeting, because he took no questions. She shouted out, Mr. President, why do you keep hiring people you believe are wackos and liars?
JD,
and he sat there like the stupid, dumb fool he is and didn't say a word.
Well, the deal with John Bolton is he's trying to profit off of this. He's trying to make money off it. He actually went on TV a couple months ago and said, I would actually lie. He said, I would lie. I would make something up to get Donald Trump out of office.
I get that.
No, that's a really big deal. He loses all credibility whatsoever under those circumstances.
So why did Trump hire him? Doesn't Trump lose credibility when he says, I only hire the best people, and then he calls all these people psychos and liars and idiots?
Well, every single person that has worked for Donald Trump that doesn't work for him anymore seems to hate his guts, and there is a mutual hatred there. Now, does Donald Trump prefer yes men? Most likely.
JD,
most likely. And I don't agree with that. I don't think that gets anything done, doing things like that. But to give John Bolton any credibility whatsoever under the circumstances when he is trying to put money into his pocket instead of he could have testified. Why did he not testify 3 or 4 months ago?
We've addressed that.
Because
I think he's a scumbag.
But why did he not, though?
What he's saying in the book isn't true.
Number one,
It doesn't, and also it doesn't mean that it is true.
All right, so,
and why are we talking about China helping Trump win the election when I thought it was Russia the entire time? Why is there such
because I'll tell you why. Can I answer that?
No, inability to pivot like
Russia
that.
To attack the DNC digitally, which they did that same night.
And China admitted to 200,000 fake Twitter accounts to try to help manipulate the election on the Democratic side 2 weeks ago. What about that? Yes,
I have heard.
Absolutely.
Say that again, you lost me.
Yeah, China admitted that they own 200,000 Twitter accounts that were being used to help manipulate the election in the Democrats' favor as of a couple weeks ago.
Who said that?
China.
Who, though? What source? I haven't heard that.
Okay.
I mean, it would have been on Fox News, I would imagine, if that was true. I'm just saying I haven't heard that story
I'll send you the information,
Okay.
Brian. We haven't discussed it, but
okay. Yeah,
I can send you the information.
I haven't heard that anywhere, so I don't know.
And as far as conversation with Russia, I think Russia had 1,200 Twitter accounts that were pro Donald Trump or something along those lines. So the conversation that China is the one that should be part of the discussion now. Why are people not being held accountable for turning this massive Mueller report
Go ahead, Doug.
into nothing? I mean, how much taxpayer dollars were wasted on that?
Go ahead, Doug. Respond to that.
How much taxpayer dollars were wasted on what, JD? The Russian investigation?
Yes, on the Mueller report, yeah.
I don't see how you figure it was wasted. First of all, the whole first half of the report detailed the the Russian interference. The second half detailed Donald Trump,
which was very minor. It was very, very minor.
3 criteria for obstruction were listed. Donald Trump asked for, welcomed, and used stolen material to help him in the election. I don't see how it was a waste of time to investigate that. He is a traitor to this country. And now we know for a fact that he tried to extort one of our allies, Ukraine, to rig the election in his favor. Why would we find it hard to believe that he said to President Xi, make sure I win?
And we actually know for a fact because we have Joe Biden on video saying that if this investigation into my son isn't stopped, I will withhold $1 billion.
No. First of all, you're wrong. There was never any investigation into Hunter Biden. Hunter Biden joined Burisma after Zelensky or whatever his name is. I'm probably mispronouncing that.
And what qualifications did Hunter Biden have in Burisma?
Only a week ago that a Ukrainian prosecutor said that after a detailed investigation, again, they found no wrongdoing by Hunter Biden. This is a shiny object to distract from Donald Trump trying to extort an ally to rig our free and fair election. That is being a traitor to this country. What makes this country what it is our free and fair democratic elections. When you ask or extort an ally to rig the election, I mean, that's unconscionable. Every day this man remains in office is a stain on this country's everything it is.
JD, you get no response to that?
No response to that? Yeah. I don't think that Donald Trump requested that a country try to rig our election. I think that the interference...
Lord, JD, he admitted it. Just for curiosity's sake, I sent a soundbite to Sean. Sean, do you have that soundbite that says Trump on it that you could play?
Well, we'll find out about that. But describe to me what is said in that soundbite, Doug.
He said... as far as me talking to Ukraine, there was no pressure. There was pressure, however, with regards to Joe Biden. He admitted it, that he put pressure on Ukraine to investigate Joe Biden.
Right.
There's no question about that. That's obvious.
Investigate Joe Biden, the senator for the last 45 years, who at that point was not guaranteed to be his Democratic opponent in the presidential election. He had not won it yet. He was checking.
He was every poll there was.
That doesn't make any difference whatsoever. He was not his guaranteed opponent in the presidential. No, Doug. That is an absolute fact. Donald Trump has every right to look into a career politician to find out how he accumulated his family wealth and where money went to involving his family and how that was connected to him.
Well, Doug, we are going to have to.
He has totally every right to do that, Doug.
All right, so
No,
Doug,
he doesn't. He has no right to extort an ally to rig a free and fair election in this country.
Yeah, especially
and
when
to
it's
defend that is unconscionable.
Especially when it's a political opponent. Doug, we only have about 1 minute to go here, so I want to give people an opportunity. Give us a little bit of a rundown on what you plan on talking about tomorrow on your show.
The same two topics we just did: John Bolton and the coronavirus.
I like it, Doug. I like it, man. I love it. Doug, it's always good to hear from you, my friend. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. And you know I am a big fan of the Doug Basham Show, so I will be listening tomorrow.
Two of us.
All right, Doug. Doug, thanks for coming on, my man. Always appreciate you.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot,
Always a
Doug.
pleasure, guys. Take care. Stay safe.